In order to give context to this post, let me explain who I am and why the fuck I bothered sharing this information. I'm a 22-year-old male, just finished my master's at university. I was about 12 when I was given permission to start using my dad's spare laptop, since his work gave him a new one every couple of years, and he thought I could use the experience of getting used to tech early on. When I got into high school, I got word from a couple of stoners that people were accessing restricted parts of the internet, which led to everyone's information. I went ahead and did some more digging online and found out about the dark web, finding proxy sites as well as hacks that you could use via command prompts to mask your IP address and basically walk through a lot of locked doors. I spent the better part of my late teens doing this kind of stuff online, using a few online forums like Radot to talk to people who were basically doing the same shit as me. I didn't have many friends offline, so yeah, online was the place for me, and I got pretty good at blending in. I had 3 aliases which I used, but only a close online friend of mine knew that they were really all me. Nathan was my main link to the dark web. Since he somehow spent more time than I did on it, even when the only thing I did other than ghosting with him was playing Halo with him on my friends list. What I liked about him is that neither of us mentioned our last names or any real information, even though we both could have looked it up at any time and found out pretty much whatever we wanted to about the other person. That being said, I trusted Nathan more than almost anyone, and he knows more about this story than I'll be willing to admit on here. During university, I roomed with a local dealer who, unknown to the education board that expelled him, worked for me. It was easy to order narcotics online like MDMA and X if you knew where to look. I even had them shipped to my dorm room's local P.O. box at one time without anyone being the wiser. I'd get the drugs online, and my former friend would then use his real-life connections to sell them since I really didn't have any of my own. This was around the time that I felt that I had all the cards. No one could touch me if they couldn't crack my IP address. I was in the second year of my biomed course when I got into some stupid shit. Some scumbags would be sharing snuff videos online that would make even the most messed up pornography you've ever laid your eyes upon look like white bread. This was why I only used the links that I either found myself or more often the ones that Nathan gave to me. We would spend days, literally days, just marveling at all the crazy shit which people would get away with. Yeah, the government had shut down the main sites like the Silk Road and Mad Onion, but those are like the only ones that idiots online ever seem to notice. Other hackers would message me on forums asking for sites to get weed and other drugs from, which was as simple as pointing in a direction. The university claimed to monitor internet traffic to stop people from doing freaky shit online after they heard about people hacking student accounts and ruining online schedules, but I guarantee you that they did absolutely nothing to people who were actually doing it. I'm not confessing to have done these particular acts, I just know which individuals did. By the 3rd year, I had made enough money to have a long screen setup of my own, which made decrypting site details a lot quicker for me, since I could actually read 200 bars without having to scroll through the tab. And I actually had gotten pretty good at it. I had been checking out some really messed up sites, and to be honest, I've even talked in some chat rooms to some of the admins in charge of them. You'd be surprised how normal some messed up child pornography site owner would seem if you didn't know that they also had a day job. I got more curious though, which was stupid of me. After nearly 10 years of seamlessly making my way around the dark web, I joined Nathan as well as a few others in a chat room, just messing around and sharing some screwed up sites. It might sound weird, but for me it was pretty much an everyday thing to do. Nathan and another friend were talking about some site that none had managed to get past the encryption except for one other person who's even more of a lowlife than me. The rest of us are pretty sure he's autistic because the site he shared with us was arguably the most vile thing I've ever laid my eyes upon. For those of you who are still with me, this is why I'm posting this here. This site is the most cancerous and revolting sector from the darkest part of the dark web. It is a scar that I bear to this day, and it is one that I'll never, ever forget. I'll warn readers again, this is not for the faint of heart, and something that even the most emotionally numb people will not be able to deal with. I won't share the URL since I don't want this post to be taken down, nor do I want anyone giving the slightest bit of publicity aside from what I'm saying here. That being said, it did have a subheading that I'll leave other people like me to have a look at if they want to. The autistic dude who was in our chat room earlier gave Nathan and I an encrypted URL for us, but he was too fucking giddy about getting through the site himself to send us an encryption, so Nathan and I manually go through the whole process ourselves. We tried for hours. Nathan and I have been doing this for the entirety of our adult lives, yet we've never seen a code like this before. Come to think of it, I doubt that the other guy in the chat room cracked this by himself. Nathan and I both called in tonight, so I left the command prompt open and went outside to smoke a joint. Nathan remained on the chat so we could play Anvil. It was pretty much just a Russian crack of Halo for PC. But when I got back, his microphone was muted for some reason. For people like us who had nothing to hide from each other, we almost never muted our mics. I waited a few minutes, thinking maybe he's jacking off or maybe gone to bed or something. I wait a few minutes, thinking he might have stepped away to go to get something, but nothing. I didn't think much of it. My brain was too occupied with the cannabinoids flowing through my bloodstream. I sat down and took another look through the code, thinking there was something I missed. I did. The code was completely different, completely encrypted. I simply launched the URL. My PC loaded for a while, until it finally opened up about 20 windows across my two monitors, all of them scrambling codes through the debugger that I have also installed. Even with 32 gigabytes of RAM, my computer was making more noise than it ever did doing this kind of stuff. I get ready to do a hard reset before my monitors turn off and back on, one at a time. This is when I start getting a bit paranoid and was thinking about just letting it go. I wish I did. The windows were almost gone. Only 4 were still there, and 2 of them were normal deep websites that the admin probably used to relay the IP address. It was the first site that I had seen do that. All of the text was in dark red and extremely primitive for a site that I thought would be at least a little bit more impressive considering its security. The main center window had only a small amount of text on the screen, which said, "If you have made it this far, you know what you are in for. If you still don't, you don't belong here." Even though I was feeling mellow, the text and sheer awe of what I was getting myself into was piercing me with fear. A simple yes-no prompt popped up on the window. I accepted, ready for whatever awaited me on the other side. A chat room window came to life in the second remaining window. I was wondering what it was for. Perhaps another IP relay or a shadow app that hid the true nature of the site behind it. It simply stated, "Insert name," as well as an optional password that I'm still not sure what was for. The fact that people might have accounts to this kind of site, looking back on it, is fucked up. I used my most recent alias, Diablo_pound. A couple more scrolls of the red text flew up the window, then it opened up into an actual sort of chat room like you'd see on Omegle or some shit. Except it had no ads or color or anything besides the dark red text. The chat was a bit more advanced than the first window, which was now frozen and wasn't responding to any console commands. I have to say, the feeling of finding the site in the first place felt pretty awesome. I couldn't wait to tell Nathan. That was until the chat window popped up with names. One that I recognized was his, using one of his aliases as well. I'd say about 36 people were in the chat room, no names that I can remember, and even if I did, I wouldn't dare reveal them, not after reading this. I tried calling Nathan on my phone, but he obviously wasn't picking up. We were so fucked. It was stupid of us to dive into the deep web without even knowing what we got ourselves into. The users definitely had met before, as they immediately started posting messages to the window as me and Nathan remained silent. As they were casually talking about stuff, I started to calm down a little bit. Maybe this was just a stupid occlusive cult website that talked about organizing deals or other dumb shit that I've found in the past. It all seemed so normal. So why all the obscurity? The first window, still blank and unresponsive, suddenly began loading a video file of some sort. A snuff video, perhaps? It made sense to hide one of them, but not this intensively, and the chat room didn't make much sense. I wish this stuff had been going through my head at the time, if I wasn't retarded enough to get stoned before going through this shit. I felt tempted to ask the other users what the video was, but I was afraid that it might give me away as someone who's not supposed to be there. Nathan hadn't said anything either, so I wasn't gonna risk doing something suspicious like that. I got the guts to ask, "What are we all here for?" trying to sound eccentric and dim-witted as I could. I didn't get a response from them. As a matter of fact, no one said another word. Nathan stayed quiet, but I assumed that he noticed me in the chat as well now that I'd posted. The video had stopped loading and had begun playing. Some more messages from the other users sharing their anticipation as the footage of a dark gray basement somewhere took shape on the screen. The resolution for the video was pretty awful at first, but then rendered pretty well after about 30 seconds. I was scared shitless. No one else was in the house that I share with my roommates. Most had left for summer vacation, and I didn't head home for another 2 weeks. I was alone in the dark, with little else but the ambient sound of whatever was happening behind the camera in the video. It stays like this for about 4 or 5 minutes. I spent every second of it staring at the screen, waiting for something to happen. Finally, a dude steps onto the screen holding a whiteboard with foreign letters on it, as well as the word cold body underneath. The guy was fucking ominous to look at, pretty overweight, and what could only be described as a motorbiker's beard. The man spoke, and I had no idea what he was saying at first. He was speaking in Chinese, I think, but I wasn't really sure. Luckily for Nathan and I, the man had another person beside him who spoke some broken English. "Hello, users. Welcome to Cold Body Show." I think he said something along those lines. I was honestly more interested than scared at this point. This video looked like it could be something worth showing to others. Then, that thought never crossed my mind again. The man with the broken English burst into tears and sobs out of nowhere. He sobs in front of the camera and jerks around in what I can only guess was desperation. The man holding the sign yells at the guy in Chinese before another man enters the frame and puts a gun to his head. Before I could even realize it was a gun, the man fired. He didn't stop there, pressing the barrel of the gun against the dead man's temple, and he fired again and again, each shot spraying blood, and what I guess were pieces of the man's skull all over the place. Okay, so a shock video, not much out of the ordinary on here. That was when I started to chat in the window again. The users were talking about what they should do next. The users were all typing in different languages, but almost all of the English ones that I read said, "Shoot him again." I realized then that I wasn't watching some shock video or stupid snuff film that admins had hid behind a wall of proxies. This was a live stream. I was watching a live stream of people being murdered in front of me. I typed into the chat box, "You sick fucks, what are you guys doing?" But the texts weren't responding because so many people were spamming the chat with foreign text that I couldn't read. Another person was brought out in front of the camera, this time already sobbing and trying to break free of the ropes that had been bound around her ankles and wrists. She was bare naked and covered in bruises and cuts. I didn't do anything but wait for the inevitable. The man shot her in the head and watched her body fall limp to the floor. People in the chat room cheered and asked for more. Someone picks up the camera and positions it in a different direction towards the metal table covered with some sort of bin liner. The woman's body was dragged by the hair into a frame and placed on the table. What happened next? I don't think the world should know. I'm not kidding. This is your final warning. The body was slumped onto the table like a surgeon would do before operating on a person. Some more people, wearing red and black ski masks, went up to the body holding items varying from kitchen knives to cordless drills. I couldn't watch without feeling physically sick to my stomach. The men tore her apart, limb from limb, stabbing her torso and cutting her open. I take another glance and see one of the men doing the unthinkable, and I'm honestly not going to even tell you. I almost immediately retched and almost vomit all over my keyboard, but I gain control of myself before that happens. My heart was beating like crazy. The whole situation was so fucked up, and I was in way over my head. By the time the men were finished, there was literally a stump of a human being left. Not that you could fucking call that a human anymore. Her head was literally torn off her neck and stuffed in her body cavity along with one of her arms. If it weren't for the other weird sights that I had seen before this, I might have not stayed as long as I did. 3 more people were brought out onto the screen, all of them screaming for their lives and trying to escape. One of them was shot in the leg. The others stand there shaking in place, trying not to scream again. The man holding the sign walks up to the lens of the camera and stares into it. I see his black eyes, blood spattered across his face. I breathed faster, and I actually had to look away. It was like he was staring right at me. He says something else in a foreign language, probably the same one as before. When he stops speaking, the chat window does the same. Hardly a single other post, just a chat window awaiting some response. About 20 seconds passes of him just staring into the camera after speaking, and nothing happens at first. The chat then mentioned me and Nathan by our usernames. More of them spam our names in the post and take over the scrolling message board. As soon as they mentioned our aliases, I started freaking out. I try to close the black windows, but every time that I try to close the window, it says that the application is not responding. The live stream continues, the man staring at me, and the message prompting me to say something. One of the few comments in proper English pops up. He's asking us to choose which one to kill first. I freeze for about 5 seconds before unplugging my computer from the wall. I didn't care about anything anymore. I just wanted to leave the site and never come back. I sat there with a blank screen in front of me for a bit before pacing around the kitchen. I was done with it. I didn't sleep at all. I was too traumatized to even think about resting after what I had seen. At the time of this happening, I was thinking about reporting the site to the police, but I, of all people, know that they can't do anything to stop this. To think that more of these sites could exist, that more people are getting gunned down and mutilated for entertainment, it's something that I can't fucking think about. I spent 2 days talking to some close friends about this stuff, though I left out all the details and just said I'd seen something disturbing online. They all know what I do in my free time, so they didn't think much of it since I mentioned snuff films and messed up sites before. They didn't know what Nathan and I had seen. I mustered up the courage to turn on my PC again, and I was relieved to see no sign of any viruses, and most of all, no black windows scattered on my desktop. I immediately go to check if Nathan had left any messages on Reddit. I had seen several messages from him with a few files attached to the second. I was hoping to talk this whole ordeal through with him, but the files immediately caught my eye. The attachments were pictures of me stolen from my Facebook and email, pictures of my old school, university, and even my friends here. The messages after were my addresses, emails, online aliases, and even the names of my family members. My IP address was posted to the bottom, and I realized how fucked I was. The last picture was of me and my old girlfriend, with her IP address and details passed onto the top of the picture. There's no way that they tracked me down. I take a few minutes to pull myself together before writing back, "What the fuck happened? Who are you?" I didn't get a response and still haven't to this day. He knows everything about me and my family, and I don't even know what else. I still don't know what has happened to him since I left that live stream. I can only pray that the information he has doesn't fall into the hands of those murderous, insane people who killed and desecrated dozens of people on the darkest part of the internet. I can't let them find me or those who I care about. I will never go back to that part of the internet ever again. It's not safe for me, or you, or anyone. The police can't find them, but they can find you. Don't try and find the site. Don't try and report the site. They will do to you what they did to me. And if you think that they won't find you, then remember this. I thought I was invisible. I've been into scary stuff since I was a kid. My mom got me into scary movies at a pretty young age, watching Stephen King movies and those 80 campy horror films. Because she was into the morbid lifestyle, well, naturally, me being my mother's daughter, I got into that same lifestyle as I got older. Watching YouTube videos and reading articles, you find some pretty scary stuff that not a lot of people know about. That's how I found out about the deep web, the deepest part of the internet where people can buy drugs and illegal military-grade weapons, post child pornography, and even watch people kill each other. Now, I take everything with a grain of salt. People love to make up stories so you won't sleep at night. So, of course, with my morbid curiosity, I wanted to debunk and see if these stories had some truth to them. My best friend Joe is a tech guy at one of the universities here in my hometown, so I asked him how I would adventure onto the deep web. He looked at me as if I was stupid and proceeded to warn me that I shouldn't do something that I knew nothing about. Being the stubborn alpha female that I am, I told him that he needed to shut up and teach me. He nodded his head politely and grabbed my computer. He first went through the steps on how to get there. First, download and install the Tor browsing bundle. This system is configured to use the Tor relay network, which anonymizes your connection through a distributed set of relays to prevent someone from learning your physical location. Second, you go to the built-in wiki page set up just for deep web. This site, he said, helps you navigate through the matrix and get you where you need to be. With my girlish excitement, I thanked him and I immediately sped home to my apartment. I turned on Spotify, lit some candles, and dimmed the lights so I could start my new adventure. My MacBook Air turned on with the glee-ish tone, and I put my cursor over the Tor symbol. At first, I hesitated. Of course I was nervous, because I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But with the beat thrusting coming through my phone, I clicked on the symbol, bringing up the wiki page. I started scrolling through some of the pages. Like I thought, they were mostly drug-related stuff. If I wanted to buy a pound of heroin, I guess that's the place to go. I scrolled through a page that looks like a chat room. I could see people's usernames as they were communicating back and forth. I watched for a few minutes just to see what these people were talking about. Then a link popped up. I was intrigued, so I clicked on it. At first, it seemed like a normal porno page, one that you find on the internet these days. There was an area where you could click on the hyperlink and go into the chat room. Going down the page, I saw one that caught my eye. It said, "sleeping," beside the words. There was a picture of a young woman in a nightgown, curled up in her bed. Again, I was interested to see what it meant, so I clicked on the hyperlink. At first, all I saw was that same woman in her bed sleeping. There was nothing out of the ordinary about it. This picture looked like a still image, one that you would take from a camera. Then all of a sudden, I could hear a loud popping sound. At first, I thought it was coming from the music or my air conditioner, since it was 90 degrees outside, but I soon realized it came from that image. I could hear curtains moving, slowly swaying back and forth, bringing my head closer to the screen. I can make out the small vent right underneath the curtains. Is this a live feed? I asked myself. Situated on the right side of the bed was an alarm clock. Looking at the big flashing red numbers, it said 12:01. I quickly looked at my own computer clock, and it also said 12:01. What is this? After a few minutes of analyzing the picture, a message popped up in this chat box. It was from the username A_psycho_killer. A psycho killer said, "It's time." At that moment, I could see the bedroom door slowly opening. A tall man with a medium build came into view. He had on black sweatpants, black hoodie, and a ski mask. He made his way over to the bed. At first, he just stood there watching this woman. Then he reaches into his pants and pulls out a huge butcher knife. He glides it across her face, pressing it hard on her cheeks. All of a sudden, you can see the woman opening her eyes. She bolts up out of fear as the man throws her back onto the bed. She starts screaming a piercing scream that echoes in my own house. He gets on top of her to hold her down. Without any warning, he puts the butcher knife in the air and slams it into her chest multiple times. The woman immediately becomes limp. The man proceeds to cut her neck as blood spews all over him. He takes his gloves off and starts acting like he's bathing in it, rubbing the dark liquid all over his face and neck. Tears start welling up in my eyes. I ran over to the telephone to dial 911. I knew I couldn't tell them who this man or woman was, but maybe I can help out in some way. As I go back to my chair, I turn to the screen. The man was standing there with a bloody knife in one hand. You could see the blood dripping off the knife onto the hardwood floor, making a puddle. As he came closer to the camera, he waved. Suddenly, I heard a ding coming from the chat box. And then, a psycho killer said, "You're next." I shut off my computer and threw it across the room. The whole next day, I tried to find out if anyone found the man or woman I saw. I searched high and low on the internet, news sites and articles, but I couldn't find anything. It was like these two people never existed. To this day, I haven't told anyone what I saw on the deep web. I thought I was better off not sharing this information because people would think I'm crazy. I know what I saw. It wasn't some type of horror film or having a vivid imagination. I went onto the deep web to prove myself wrong. Because of my stupidity, I have to watch my back every day.